They don't see it, do they? The hours when you were invisible, the moments when silence screamed louder than applause ever could. The years you stitched your soul back together with nothing but grit and fire. And now they stare, breathless, trying to trace the lines of a blueprint they never saw being drawn. Because they only witnessed the explosion, not the slow burn. Not the frostbite of isolation. The cut of betrayal, the nights your tears tasted like metal, cold, bitter. You walked through fire without making a sound, and now the room tilts when you enter, not because you're loud, but because you survived. Because you built a kingdom out of what they buried you in. They spent decades in committee rooms arguing with their own potential, while you bled in silence and mapped the entire battlefield in the shadows. And one night, yes, just one night, you rose. Not because it was easy, but because breaking was never an option. And when they ask how, when they lean in, wide-eyed, desperate, confused, you just smile. Not in arrogance, but in knowing. Because no one sees the hours you spent as a ghost in your own life. The bones you buried just to keep going. The voices you silenced just to hear your own heartbeat again. You weren't born with this, you built brick by beating brick, while they scrolled and doubted and laughed. You endured not to prove them wrong, but to prove you right. And now they're watching like children at the glass, pointing at a masterpiece they couldn't even dream of painting. Because it takes pain to make something eternal. It takes solitude to hear the truth. It takes suffering to sculpt silence into strength. And you mastered it in the dark. They chased formulas. You chased fire. They waited for permission. You tore through the rules. They feared the fall. You became the storm. They speak of decades, but what are decades to someone who lived 1,000 lives in silence? What are timelines to a soul that broke time with every breath? What is experience to someone who bled knowledge into every second of stillness? You didn't study success, you became it. Because no book could teach the kind of hunger that drove you. No mentor could guide you through the kind of emptiness you faced. This was you versus you. And you won. They only see the surface, the calm, but beneath it is a war that never ended. A fire that never went out. A voice that never broke. Even when your heart did, you stood alone, not by choice, but by fate. Because solitude was the forge, and pain was the teacher. And now they sit in awe, wondering how you did it, how you cracked the code. But there was no code, just scars, just nights with no answers, just silence so thick it could kill. But you made a language out of that silence. You made music out of chaos. You turned wounds into weapons, and dreams into blueprint. They thought you vanished, but you were just getting sharp. While they slept, you strategized. While they complained, you conditioned your mind. While they demanded sympathy, you demanded greatness from yourself. No shortcuts, no excuses, just war, quiet, personal, brutal. And yet look at you now, composed, powerful, unmoved by the noise. Because you became the noise. You became the question they can't answer, the riddle they can't decode, the ghost that became legend. And they're whispering your name now, not out of love, not out of friendship, but fear. Because when you rise alone, they don't know how to classify you. You're not from their world anymore. You've outgrown the cage they all agreed to live in. You walked out of the maze they keep calling home. And now they want the secret. But there isn't one. Just agony turned into architecture. Just heartbreak turned into fuel. Just silence turned into symphony. And if they ask again, tell them this: you solved it in one night. Because one night was all it took to remember who you are. One night of clarity. After years of chaos. One night of decision. After decades of distraction. One moment where you chose the edge over the echo. And once you chose it, you never looked back. And they'll never catch up. Because this wasn't built with luck. It was carved with rage, polished with tears, reinforced with discipline, and sealed with solitude. So let them watch, let them wonder, let them take notes, but they'll never know what it cost you. They'll never feel what you bury. They'll never taste the iron in your breath as you bit down on every screen, just to stay focused. They'll never understand the art of holding back when everything inside you was begging to explode. They'll never know the elegance of restraint, the poetry of patience, the violence of becoming. And that's why they're in awe. Because deep down, they know that they couldn't have survived what you did, and they wouldn't have lasted a second in your silence. They never saw you bleed, but you did. Quietly, invisibly, with no applause to soften the sting, with no hand to wipe the tears that slipped through gritted teeth. Only the shadows watched. Only the silence bore witness to your war, and while they scribbled blueprints in comfort, you carved your answers into stone, barefoot in the cold. They had teachers, mentors, and room to fall. You had bruises, setbacks, and rooms that locked behind you every time you failed. But still you rose, and that's what they can't explain. That's what keeps them up at night. How someone so disregarded, so written off, could suddenly blaze through like fire on dry leaves. They chase hacks, shortcuts, loopholes. You chase demons out of your mind just to breathe, just to focus, just to survive another hour without drowning in doubt. And when they ask, how did you figure it out in a single night? You smirk, not out of pride, but because they'll never understand what it cost you. They saw the glow. They didn't see the grave you dug to bury your old self in. Didn't see the scars you stapled shut with discipline. Hear the self-talk that shook your soul into waking. Didn't hear the silence that answered back. Cold, merciless, and real. They think it was a miracle. It wasn't. It was muscle grown in grief. It was wisdom built through wounds. It was clarity born from chaos you had to eat raw alone. And they marvel at your stillness now, like it's grace, it's restraint. You learned not to scream in storms. You learned to listen, to wait, to absorb what pain was teaching when others ran from the lesson. You didn't just solve it in one night. You lived every night like it was war. And finally one night, the war ended, and you were still standing, barely breathing, but standing. And that was enough. The night didn't give you a breakthrough. You earned it. And when it came, it looked like magic, but only to those who were watching from the outside, from the safe seats, far from the battlefield. They never saw you rehearse discipline in the dark, while your hands shook. Never saw the hours you spent drowning and choosing not to die. They think you were blessed. Maybe you were, but not in the way they believe. You were blessed with fire, with pain so deep, either crushed you or carved you into something steel. And you chose to rise, didn't you? Not once, not twice, endlessly. You became your own healer, your own motivator, your own reminder. And that is why they stare now, wide-eyed, stunned, asking themselves how. Forget time doesn't measure growth. Pain does. Effort does. Solitude does. And you mastered all three in silence. You earned in one night what took them decades, because you carried decades of pain in a single chest. And it burned. Every second burned. Until your thoughts screamed louder than your fears. And your will rose like smoke through the cracks. Unstoppable. Inevitable. Undeniable. So no, you didn't skip steps. You took a path so brutal, so raw, that only the broken would dare walk it. and only the risen would finish it. They don't know what it's like to sit in silence and hear your future call you, and feel too shattered to answer. But you did, and you crawled to it inch by inch. Every inch paid in blood. And that's what changed everything, not luck, not chance, not fortune, but grit, soul-deep grit, forged the fire of rejection and forgotten nights. When your name meant nothing, when your voice echoed off empty walls, and still you spoke, still you believed. And now they see you and wonder why the ground shakes when you speak, why your presence disturbs the room, why stillness unsettles the confident. It's because they feel it. They feel the weight of the war you won, and they can't explain it. And they won't. They'll call it luck. They'll say it was a fluke. But in the quiet, when they sit alone, they know the truth. They know no textbook taught you this. No mentor gave you this. You dug it from the dirt with your bare hands and refused to stop digging. And that's why your silence scares them now. Because they realize you're still digging. You never begged to be seen. You forced the world to look true, not by shouting louder, but by walking so fiercely in silence that even the noise bowed down. You didn't ask for validation. You became it. You became the benchmark, the reminder, the uncomfortable reflection people weren't ready to face. Because your presence didn't just enter the room, it challenged it. Made people question the lies they told themselves about limits, about timing, about pain. You were supposed to fold, remember. You were supposed to break down like they did, but you didn't. And that's what bothers them. You stayed standing when everything should have crushed you. When life tested your worth without mercy, you answered, not with words, but with transformation, until it echoed louder than their screams. They laughed at your pain until your progress left them speechless, and now they avoid your eyes because in them they see every excuse they've ever made, dying, suffocating in the presence of your truth. You are the proof that discomfort is not the enemy. It's the gatekeeper. And while they waited for the gate to open, you broke it off the hinges with nothing but willpower and rage forged into purpose, and that's what they understand. This wasn't for applause. This wasn't to prove them wrong. This was survival. This was evolution. And now your existence alone is rebellion. A quiet defiance against mediocrity. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to awaken, to shake bones, to trigger memories, people that they tried to bury beneath comfort and convenience. And when you walk into the room, their mask slips. Because authenticity doesn't need to announce itself, it exposes what isn't real. And everything fake about them trembles in your presence. They call it intimidation. It's just the weight of your journey pressing against their unearned confidence. You are not loud. You are deep. You are layered. And that scares people who've only ever existed on the surface. You didn't ask for respect. You became undeniable. You turned suffering into sculpture, turned isolation into influence. And while they post quotes about healing, you became the wound and the cure. You stitched your soul back together and then lit the path for others without ever asking for credit, and now they look at you and wonder how you do it. How you carry without crumbling. How you see so much without speaking. How you burn with truth, but never scorch those around you. And it's because you remember what it felt like to be fragile, to be overlooked, to be doubted. And that memory, that pain, It became your compass. It made you fierce, but never cruel. It made you powerful, but never arrogant. And that balance, that control, that aura, that's what makes people question everything when they stand beside you. You didn't earn this through shortcuts. You bled for this in silence, in the shadows. Now you radiate the kind of strength that isn't taught. It's survived. They ask where your confidence comes from, not realizing it was built every time you rose when no one thought you would. Every time you kept going when quitting would have been mercy. Every time you faced demons, a love that others need entire armies to fight. Your calm now is not emptiness. It's understanding. It's knowing you were the storm, that the battle outside will never match the one you already won within. So no, you didn't ask for respect. You became a reason others reflect. They replay every moment they dismissed you, ignored you, doubted you. And it haunts them now, because you didn't just grow, you transformed. You didn't just survive, you ascended, and the world had no choice but to notice. You were forged in dark, not for applause, but for impact. And now your presence is heavy. Not because you carry pain, but because you carry truth, and truth has weight. Your voice has gravity now, because it's not just your story. It's a mirror, and everyone who hears you feels it deep, uncomfortable, powerful, unforgettable. And that's why you don't chase attention. Attention bends towards you, because authenticity doesn't beg, it commands. And you, my friend, are no longer just a person. You are a movement, a symbol, a reason someone gets up again. What pain looks like when it doesn't win. What resilience sounds like when it stops whispering and starts shaking the earth. They don't clap for you because they admire you. They fear you, because in your eyes, they see the version of themselves they were too scared to become, and now it's too late, because while they slept, you rose. You didn't just survive the chaos. You memorized it like a song the world never wanted you to hear. And now it plays inside you, quietly, eternally, violently. They keep asking how you did what they couldn't, but they never ask about the nights where silence was a scream, and the air felt like glass against your lungs. They don't know what it's like to bleed without wounds, to break without sound, to build something while everyone watches just to see you fail. You rose in darkness, not because you loved it, but because the light rejected you. You built your answers in a place no one dared to enter. While they waited for permission, you made decisions. While they asked for help, you asked for war. While they rested, you prepared, sharpening your mind on the edge of every insult, every cold shoulder, every slammed door. You were not given time. You took it, carved it, claimed it with every breath they said you'd waste. They think it was a miracle, but it was math. A formula of pain, silence, fire, focus, and discipline. You didn't skip the process, you buried yourself inside it. You died in front of people who never even noticed, and came back with eyes that see too much and a heart that feels too little. Not because you lost it, but because you locked it, guarded it, armored it behind scars they'll never earn. They practiced theories, you practiced bleeding. They had mentors, you had monsters. And still you found a way to tame the storm inside your bones. You didn't wait for rescue. You became your own lighthouse. While they circled each other for validation, you walked into the fire, came out with purpose etched into your veins. You weren't chosen. You forged your own selection, hammered it into your soul, while nobody clapped. Nobody cared. Nobody even looked your way. But they're looking now, aren't they? Eyes wide, voices hushed, wondering how the silent one, the one they mocked, the one they doubted, the one they dismissed like dust, managed to solve the maze they spent lifetimes circling in one night. They talk about talent, you talk about trauma. They mention intelligence, you mention endurance. They had comfort, you had cages, but cages teach you patience, teach you silence, teach you how to breathe inside pressure until the pressure becomes your pulse. And now they're stunned, shocked, shattered by what you've become. Because it doesn't make sense to them how someone with nothing turned nothing into everything. They don't know what it's like to carry questions that stab, to smile through silence that strangles, to rise from a battlefield no one knew you were fighting on. You didn't take shortcuts. You became the road. You didn't cheat time. You wrestled with it. You didn't pray for easy. You trained for impact. And now, they stare, jaw-dropped, frozen, as if witnessing a ghost rise from the ashes of every failed bet they placed against you. But you didn't come to impress. You came to finish. You didn't come for their applause, you came for your peace. And that's what terrifies them. That's what keeps them up at night. That's what makes your name echo in the halls of their pride. Because while they invested decades in avoiding pain, you spent moments inside it, learning its language, breaking it down, decoding its rhythm, until pain stopped hurting and started teaching. You were your own scientist, your own blacksmith, your own storm. While they were busy studying life, you lived it, raw, unfiltered, brutal. And when it broke you, you didn't beg for mercy, you begged for one more round. They don't realize that strength like yours isn't built. It's burned into existence, fire-tested, forged under silence. So loud it rewires your soul. They think it happened overnight because they never saw the nights you didn't sleep, the mornings you didn't eat, the hours you spent building while your body collapsed but your will refused. They call it luck, but they weren't there when luck laughed in your face and still you kept walking. They talk now, louder than ever, but none of it matters, because the noise they make now is the same silence they gave you when you needed them. And you remember everything. The looks, the lies, the exits, the shadows that clung to you when you had nothing but resolve. And now they stand on the other side of your transformation, afraid, confused, curious, because you didn't just win, you became the proof that the impossible is only impossible until someone dares enough to ignore the rules. And you shattered the rules, ripped them apart, in one silent motion. One silent night, while they watched the clock, you watched yourself. While they waited for change, you became it, in silence, in solitude, in darkness that didn't break you, it built you. You're not the result of luck or privilege. You're the result of pain well used, of time well buried, of silence well studied. You're what happens when someone refuses to die quietly, when someone turns every heartbreak into heat, every insult into iron, and every moment of doubt into discipline. And now they want to understand, they want to study you, analyze you, mimic you, but they won't find it in textbooks or timetables. They won't find it in mentors or motivational speeches, because what you carry wasn't taught, it was endured, it was felt, it was survived. And that's something you can't teach, something they'll never recreate, because it didn't happen by chance, it happened by choice. Your choice to keep going when everything said stop.